Hello, and thanks for joining me. I'm John, and today I'm going to talk to you about immigration and the ideas surrounding it. In the highly globalized society we have in today's world, immigration is one of the foremost concerns of almost every nation. Immigration is a very large concept. To understand it more fully, I'm going to break it down into sections, and then we'll put it back together into a single piece. Reasons for immigration can be broken down into categories. The foremost reason for immigration is economic migration. That's immigration that involves seeking better employment or economic status. Education or retirement immigration occurs when a student is searching for a better education system or a retiree is seeking to spend their later years in a different country than that of their origin. A very large section of immigrants make up those emigrating to escape persecution. Most refugees seeking asylum from oppression fall into this category, and the final category for immigrants is the personal reasons column. Moving for relationships such as partners or family, all the way to moving to escape criminal justice, all fall into this group. After we discuss each group, we'll move on to the economic and social changes that immigration entails, and most importantly, the beliefs surrounding these effects and what we can do to encourage immigration rather than discourage it. An economic immigrant is an individual who emigrates to seek employment opportunities and improved quality of life. These are not to be confused with refugees, but are from stable countries and emigrate for the sole reason of work. There are requirements for these immigrants, including obtaining a work visa that permits the holder to seek employment when coming to a new country. But there are some who enter the country under a tourist visa and seek employment, or enter the country as an illegal immigrant, but all enter a country in the hopes of finding work. Many economic immigrants proceed to send funds to their country of origin. These remittances, as they're commonly called, were estimated by the World Bank to be approximately $582 billion in 2015, $432 billion of which went to developing countries. A subcategory of economic immigration is mandatory immigration, when a job demands immigration, such as for diplomatic work or religious missionaries, employees of transnational corporations, or other non-governmental organizations. However, unlike those immigrating without the promise of a job already in place, these workers' conditions of employment are typically equal to or better than those applying to the host country for similar work. Next, we'll tackle the immigration reasons for education and retirement. The education systems have been at most minorly affected by immigration. Studies performed in the United Kingdom, Holland, Austria, and North Carolina in the US showed that test scores and students' performances were not affected significantly by immigrated students. Retirement immigration also has very little effect, as the retirees will not enter the workforce and instead want to retire to a better climate with possibly a lower cost of living, such as British retirees settling in Spain and France, or Canadian retirees settling in Florida and Texas. A large section of immigrants that is perhaps the most highlighted group are those that emigrate because of persecution. Refugees flee their country of origin and seek a better life in another country. However, the amount of refugees seeking asylum in other countries has increased every year for over a decade. Rising with it are refugees within their own home country, commonly known as internally displaced persons. Refugees face a large number of problems, the foremost of which is the fact that their displacement or protracted displacement is a long-term arrangement. 50% of refugees, around 10 million people, have been displaced over 10 years. Medical complications are another large problem refugees face, with PTSD affecting huge numbers of refugees. Finally, we come to personal reasons. Personal reasons for emigrating include relationships, such as the spouse of an economic migrant, where a person immigrates directly because of another person immigrating for another reason. It can include areas like transnational marriage or family reunification. Other forms of immigration that fall into the personal reason category are transferred patriotism, when an individual finds their personal allegiance toward a nation has shifted and moves to match the shift, or avoiding criminal justice, although there are many instances where war crimes are persecuted across national borders and the immigrant in question is still hunted. Now that we have laid out the basic categories that an immigrant could fall into, it's time to look at the effects of immigration and the government systems set up to handle immigrants. Immigrants affect a wide range of societal levels, including economically, socially, and finally, we'll talk about how we as citizens can positively impact the immigration policies and attitude toward immigrants America holds. The economic effect of immigrants spans quite a few different areas. The job market has been a constant hallmark of anti-immigration causes like the Federation for American Immigration Reform in their claim that estimates that over 8 million illegal immigrant workers were in the American workforce in 2010. However, there is no evidence that illegal or legal economic migrants take jobs from residents. In fact, evidence gathered after the Mariel boat lift provided conclusively that even with a growth of population of 7%, there was no difference in unemployment rates or wages of workers from 1979 to 1985. Actually, according to a study conducted by Chasumbuli and Perry in 2015, concluded that illegal immigrants in particular help employment rates because their presence reduces the labor cost of employers who, as a consequence, create more jobs for the unemployed when there are more immigrants. Other case studies have subjected the idea of the European Union and its decision to lift migration restrictions within its members. A study started in 2004 and continuing over 5 years focused on the influx of Eastern European immigrants in the UK and Ireland and showed that younger workers' wages increased by 6% and did not affect the older workforce at all. In Turkey, refugees have been fleeing Syria in droves since 2014, and the inflow of over 1.8 million Syrian refugees has created higher wage formal jobs, allowing for occupational upgrading of the native Turkish workers. So what are the economic effects of immigration? Well, overall, immigrants pay more in taxes and social contributions to the government they live under than the health care and welfare they cost. They boost the working age of the population, and they arrive with skills and contribute to technological progress. And what about the other areas that immigrants affect? Those believed to be more detrimental or dangerous to our society. A big question for many people nowadays is whether or not refugees and other illegal immigrants cause an increase in crime. This fear that refugees and illegal immigrants are bringing crime and terrorism into our country is one that has been heard repeatedly on the news for more than a year. While there have been no long-term studies in the United States for illegal immigrants and their relationship to crime, a study in Italy ranging from 1990 to 2003 suggests that the only crime that is increased with an influx of immigrants is robberies, while all other crimes are unaffected. It's important to note here that robberies make up a very small percentage of all crime in Italy, and because of this, the effect of immigrants on crime in Italy as a whole during the time of the study was almost zero. In the UK and Wales, a study that began in the early 2000s and continued after the European Union expansion of 2004 found that there was no evidence of an average causal impact of immigration on crime. In fact, in studies conducted focusing on London in particular, or on the countries as a whole, found that there was no increase in crime, and there was no sign that immigrants had greater likelihood of being arrested. We've looked at differing types of immigrants and how they are separated. We've also looked at how the world views on immigrants versus what the facts are. There is no doubt that immigration has increased significantly with the rapid globalization, and the European expansion particularly has accelerated these numbers with its decision to lower restrictions on travel within itself. But still, one point remains. What can we as U.S. citizens do to promote what is clearly a good thing for our economy and society, rather than abhor it based on rumors and falsities? Well, first and foremost, we can welcome immigrants into our neighborhoods rather than locking doors. Providing immigrants with job opportunities and a chance to grow and become part of our society, and perhaps most importantly, make sure that the generation growing up now understands that the anti-foreigner attitude that plagues America is built on lies and superstitions, and that immigrants are not here to destroy our national identity, but want their own traditions and ideas to become part of it. And lastly, as always, it's important to vote in local and national elections. Thank you for listening.